One of America's founding fathers may have tried to bring the dead back to life. Another wrote his own end-of-the-world prophecy. And at least a few of them were deep into secret societies that still make conspiracy theorists sweat through their patriot boxers. These men didn't just write the Declaration of Independence and pose dramatically for oil paintings. They were also Freemasons, code makers, occult experimenters, and, depending on which rabbit hole you fall down, part of something a lot stranger than just a revolution. We're talking mystical symbols in the nation's capital, secret geometry in the Constitution, and rumors that the United States wasn't just founded as a democracy, but as an experiment in something much bigger. So the question isn't, were they hiding something? The question is, how much? This is 10-Minute Mystery. Let's get into it. So here's the deal. A suspicious number of founding fathers were Freemasons. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, basically the varsity team of early America. And while Freemasonry today feels like a mix of LinkedIn networking and old men in aprons, back then it was serious business, full of rituals, oaths, and symbols that may have secretly shaped the entire country. Let's start with the most obvious red flag, the back of the dollar bill. That creepy, unfinished pyramid with the all-seeing eye floating above it, that's not just a weird graphic design. It's straight out of Masonic symbolism. The eye represents divine guidance. In the pyramid, well, it's been interpreted 100 different ways, from spiritual enlightenment to a literal roadmap of America's destiny. And it doesn't stop with the currency. The layout of Washington, D.C. is strange. Some say it was designed using sacred geometry, shapes and lines believed to hold mystical power. There are streets that align with solstices, and if you squint hard enough, some claim you can trace a pentagram in the city's grid, which feels very chill and normal for the nation's capital, right? Even the dates and structure of key documents, like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, have been said to contain numerical codes tied to Masonic rituals. Think Da Vinci Code, but with powdered wigs and more parchment. So here's the question. Were these men laying the groundwork for a democratic republic or something more symbolic, maybe even secret? And if they were, how much of that secret is still operating behind the scenes? Benjamin Franklin was a genius, no doubt. Invented bifocals, helped shape a new nation, charmed the French. But dig a little deeper and things start to feel less founding father and more that one guy in your friend group who's always reading books on alchemy and won't stop talking about energy crystals and maybe is involved in a lot of orgy action. For starters, Franklin was known as a member of the Hellfire Club, an elite British society that met in underground caves and allegedly dabbled in everything from blasphemous rituals to mock sacrifices. The tagline for this club might as well have been, "What if the Illuminati had an open bar?" But it gets worse. In 1998, construction workers renovating Franklin's old London home made a discovery. Over a dozen human bones buried in the basement. Like actual skeletons. The official explanation? Medical research. But some historians aren't so sure. The arrangement of the bones suggested ritualistic activity. And considering Franklin's deep interest in electricity, some believe he was trying to reanimate the dead. Yes, reanimate the dead. As in early American Frankenstein vibes, but with more lightning and less Mary Shelley. And just to add another layer, Franklin also wrote about the possibility of using electricity to revive corpses, not in a horror novel, in real scientific papers. He genuinely wondered if jolting a recently deceased body with a powerful enough current could bring it back. So was Franklin just ahead of his time, a curious mind pushing the boundaries of science, or was he messing with knowledge that probably should have stayed buried? Literally. Valley Forge, winter of 1777. The army's starving, morale's in the dirt, and George Washington is trying to keep the revolution alive while freezing his powdered wig off. According to legend, it's in this moment's peak desperation that Washington has a vision. A literal vision. a glowing, otherworldly woman appears in his tent. She doesn't say her name, but let's call her, for sake of this podcast, Spirit of America, for dramatic effect. She shows him 3 great perils the country will face. First, the Revolutionary War, which, okay, that was happening as he was hallucinating it. But number 2, the Civil War, eerily spot on, almost a century early. And 3, the big one, a final apocalyptic battle for America's survival, cities burning, foreign armies invading, chaos. But in the end, America rises from the ashes, victorious, like a bald eagle reborn, and probably screaming dramatically in the wind. Now, skeptics say this whole thing is made up. The story didn't even show up until decades after Washington's death, published by a guy who conveniently claimed he heard it firsthand from a friend of a friend who may or may not have been freezing to death at Valley Forge. But the details are weirdly specific, and the timing of the story's popularity, just before the Civil War, feels suspiciously strategic. Like someone wanted a little prophecy sprinkled in to boost morale. Or maybe, just maybe, Washington really saw something, and the third great peril hasn't happened yet. So is this vision a politically convenient ghost story, or did George Washington genuinely glimpse a future we're not ready for? If George Washington was the face of the revolution, and Franklin was the chaotic inventor friend who dabbled in orgies, Thomas Jefferson was the quiet, bookish one who probably had encrypted notes in his lunchbox. Dude was obsessed with codes. Seriously. He invented something called the Jefferson wheel cipher, basically a pocket-sized encryption device that could have doubled as steampunk jewelry. It was one of the most advanced cryptographic tools of its time, and it didn't even become widely known until the 20th century. Like, he built this thing, used it, and never bragged about it. That's either a humble genius or next-level secretive. Now, some theorists believe that Jefferson embedded hidden messages in the Declaration of Independence itself. Specific line breaks, odd word choices, numerical patterns. It all smells like someone was leaving Easter eggs for future nerds to decode. No one's cracked anything definitive yet, but that hasn't stopped people from trying. Then there's this little coincidence. Jefferson and John Adams both died on July 4th, 1826. That's exactly 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. 2 of its authors, 2 of its biggest names. Same day, same year, same national holiday. Statistically, it's bananas. Symbolically, it's like they scheduled their deaths for dramatic effect. Adams' last words were reportedly, "Thomas Jefferson survives." Spoiler, he didn't. Jefferson had died earlier that day. So what are we supposed to take from that? Some say it's pure coincidence. Others think Jefferson may have known he was dying on the anniversary and somehow planned it that way. Or it's just more proof these guys were operating on a timeline we don't fully understand. Because when one of the most important authors in American history spends his life designing codes and then exits the stage with cosmic timing, you have to wonder, what message did Jefferson leave behind that we still haven't found? So here's a theory that'll either ruin your next history class or make it way more interesting. America wasn't just founded as a democracy. It was built as a spiritual science project. Enter Sir Francis Bacon, a 17th century philosopher who basically invented the modern scientific method and wrote a book called The New Atlantis. In it, he describes a hidden land across the ocean, full of knowledge, science, and secret wisdom. A kind of utopia guided by an elite group of enlightened minds. Now here's the weird part. A lot of the founding fathers were obsessed with this book. Some even saw themselves as bringing Bacon's vision to life. A new world, a fresh start, not just politically, but spiritually, esoterically, symbolically. According to this theory, America was never just about independence from Britain. It was about creating a new kind of society, one that would secretly be led by enlightened thinkers, using Masonic symbols, sacred geometry, and ritualized intention baked into its very foundation. This wasn't just patriotism, it was mythology, repackaged. And some folks believe that the U.S. is still operating under this hidden mission, that the real experiment is ongoing, that all this democracy, capitalism, social evolution It's all a part of this long game designed centuries ago by people who believed they were shaping the future of humanity. So, was America born from rebellion, or was it always destined to become the new Atlantis? The Founding Fathers weren't just crafting a new nation. They were weaving in secret codes, ancient symbols, and ideas pulled from science, philosophy, and maybe the occult. They wrote the laws, yes, but they also buried clues in plain sight, clues in the architecture, the documents, even the dates. Whether they were chasing enlightenment, power, or something we'll never fully understand, they knew exactly what they were doing. So, what are we still missing? Were they just brilliant minds ahead of their time, or did they leave behind a hidden blueprint we've only begun to decode? And if that blueprint exists, who's following it now? Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Mystery. If this episode made you side-eye the back of your dollar bill a little bit harder, good. There's a lot more where that came from. Follow the show for more brief and bingeable mysteries. Twice a week. No fluff, just the weird stuff that sticks with you. Until next time, check your symbols, question everything, and maybe don't trust anyone wearing a powdered wig and wearing a secret ring.